Arsenal have come away from St. Mary's with a 2-0 win. We now go live to Top 4 correspondent Bill. Bill, what can you tell us about the race for 4th place?
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Thank you, Bill. That's Bill, our Top 4 correspondent, checking in with the latest update. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. I am thrilled to be joined by Paul. You can find him on Twitter at Positive My Pants. Hello, Paul.
Woohoo!
And I am also joined by Clive. He's back. He has decided to brave the slings and arrows of criticism in the comments section of our reviews and join us for this podcast. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Thanks for letting me back. Appreciate it.
It wasn't my decision. I was overruled. But that's okay. We'll have you anyway. I'm kidding. I'm thrilled to have you back. And frankly, thrilled that Tim is not here because that guy thinks he's so special because he goes to every Arsenal game and writes about every Arsenal game and is on every Arsenal podcast. You know what, Tim? You and your smart opinions and erudite conversation and articulate. Exactly. You know what? No, we're going to go full narrative. Well, this is going to be the Sunday supplement version of the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. I'm kidding. We would never do that to you, dear listener. Mom, we love you too much. Okay, let's get started. Unchanged from United. The back three rides into the sunset again. I thought overall this was a good performance. I mean, look, it isn't the high-flying, swashbuckling Arsenal that we've seen over the years, but it is an improvement on just about everything we had seen over the months. And I thought this was a solid, if not spectacular, performance. But the first portion of the game was dominated by a dynamic display from Oxlade-Chamberlain. And, Paul, I think, you know, it's...
Is this still your funny intro?
No, I'm being serious. Look, this is the thing that frustrates about Ox, I think, though, right? He looked like the Ox. You remember the AC Milan game in the Champions League?
Yeah.
When kind of a coming out party for him, the one where we almost recovered a terrible first leg deficit. Stop me if you've heard that one before. He could get past his man any time he wanted to. But his crossing, I mean, I realize he just played a cross for a goal against United at the weekend, but his crossing was wayward on the day. And I think I like to see what he was doing on occasion in the game, which is try to beat the next man, try to take it into the box, try to come central and look for runners instead of just floating across through the box or whipping something in low and hard towards the near post, especially if we don't have Giroud in there. So what did you make of Ox's start until he had to leave with injury, unfortunately?
Yeah. No, I really liked it. I possibly liked it slightly less than you for a change. But no, I did really like it. Yeah, he was hit and miss with the crosses, maybe a little bit more miss than hit. But as you and I were kind of knocking back and forth before the game, you know, crosses are low XG. They are hit and miss. But, you know, a terrible cross is a terrible thing, but a cross kind of in the particular zone, you know, it may not show up in XG, it may not show up in a direct chance, but you got to mix it up a bit. So did we quite get it right in the first half? No, but that's what second halves are for. Unfortunately, you got injured. Yeah, most of our attacking seemed to be through Ox or down his side, but basically through Ox. So he was pretty dominant in the first half. And so I'm sure it was with some concern that all of us saw him going off. Yeah. The only consolation is knowing that Hector's on the bench and that you're in with a reasonable chance of a somewhat a variation on a theme, more defensive version of something potentially the same. I think Hector came up trumps in the second half. But yeah, you know, the big frustration for me with Ox, where you have your frustrations, mine is just the injuries thing, which is, I'm not sure there's anything the boy can do about it, but that's the problem with him. It's the problem with Ramsey.
Jack Wilshere. I mean, come on, you can go through the whole squad. This has been a continuing theme, and I agree with you with Ox in the sense that here's a player who needs to get his decision making right and his, you know, raise his technical level a little bit in game situations, and you just have to play matches to get familiar with that. You know,
it's like it's hit the reset button. He'll be back, and we'll probably keep him over. You know, we'll probably keep him. He'll be back at the start of next season, and you and I'll get to do it all again from your frustration. Why people get, you know, are wound up about him, and then he kind of begins to get some form where, you know, from my standpoint, I feel a little little bit more vindicated, and then the fucker goes and gets injured again. So it's very frustrating all around. Very frustrating all around.
It is, and I think, Clive, for me, the thing with Ox that impresses me the most is his ability to beat a man and chew up the grass in front of him and explode forward. And we saw that in midfield in years past from players like Rosicky. Wilshere was able to do it to a certain extent. Cazorla didn't have the explosiveness, but the escapability and the ability to carry the ball that extra 5 or 10 yards forward to create mismatches up the pitch and pull the opposition out of position. You know, I know Ox has added some end product this season, but isn't it possible, given that we have a talented, if out of form and potentially injured, right back in Hector Bellerin, that Oxlade-Chamberlain could add that escapability and athleticism in central midfield that we've been missing?
Yeah, I mean, you've read my mind, right? Because I'm one of the few that actually don't think he's a wing-back. I think he can do it. I think he has the ability to, well, we all can see he has the ability to beat his man. His crossing is getting better. People are always worried about his crossing, but for me, the skill is getting to the crossing position and beating your man in the first place and driving into those areas. The last piece, which is decision-making, that can be learned, that can be improved, that can be done with experience. So, and I just think sometimes the higher level you go in football, your position finds you. And sometimes your body tells you where you should be playing. And if you look at the Ox, you just look at his body, he's a heavily muscled guy, right? He's very powerful, very dynamic.
All right, Clive, steady on.
Sorry, man. I'm saying
Dangerous
too much.
territory here.
You know what? We're not. If this is how you feel about Ox, we're not letting you talk about Giroud. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, but we can all see he's very powerful, and those type of athletes are not the ones you normally find in wide areas, right? Because constant bursts and carrying a lot of muscle is going to lead to hamstrings. And I mean, I did some stuff coming out last night talking about his consecutive games he's played for Arsenal. I mean, I think the record is, well, this year he's only played 4 in a row. Last year he only played 3 in a row. The year before was 7 in a row. As soon as he gets to some sort of form, he a calf or a hamstring goes. So if you're his manager, you should be thinking, okay, what am I going to do with him? I need to look at his training regime. I need to take him out of the gym a little bit. I need to get him into his body. Is telling me that he's a central midfield player. And he needs to be in the centre of the pitch where, as you say, there's capability skills, which he has, could be sensational driving down the middle. And Hector Bellerin is the type of athlete who's lighter, a little bit more rangy in his running style. And he has the ability to do repeat runs without breaking down. And I would like to see that situation swap over. But for right now, it's working. And people are seeing a different side of the Ox, and he's a player that we're giving the ball to literally because he's one of the few that can beat his man and run away from them. And that's why he's getting such joy. But I'm still not convinced that's his best position.
Yeah, and the funny thing is he turns the ball over as much as Alexis does. It doesn't get talked about as much. He does. But you need players like that are willing to take their men on. I just think that we lack that explosiveness in central midfield. And if you have it, you can push Alexis further up the pitch. You allow Ozil to find space because if he beats a man and he carries it forward, someone's got to step up to protect. And then that's where Ozil can kill you. And that's where Alexis can get him behind and good things start to happen. But if Oxlade-Chamberlain wants to see how to put in the proper cross from exceptional advanced positions, all he has to do is watch his opposite number at left wing back, Kieran Gibbs, who was just no, I'm kidding, he's horrible. Clive, tell me how bad Kieran Gibbs is at football.
Well, it's something that we've seen for so long, isn't it? He looks right. He's got lots of energy. He looks made for that position. But, you know, your eyes never lie, right? How do you feel when he's in the last third? You don't expect something to happen. You hope something's going to happen. You know, and whereas I think Monreal is far more accurate, far more consistent, far better at different combinations. And when he's in the last third, I just think something's going to happen more so than I do with Gibbs. I don't dislike him. I like him.
No, I don't dislike him either. But that was a pretty rough performance, right?
Yeah, it's just not. If we're looking at upgrades, we should be looking at upgrades. For him, he needs a fresh challenge. I think he's got a little lease of life here just recently, but it feels like a last bounce for him. I just feel he gets into great positions very, very regularly for an offensive club in wide areas, and we don't get enough end product. And it is a learned skill, but this has been the same issue for many, many years. And he I don't see him working at it. I don't see it changing. And, these players are all super technicians. He's great in tight spaces. He can do it. I've seen him do it. But crossing under pressure when it counts, to find your man in the box to get the first goal, I don't trust him to do it. But it'd be interesting to see what happens, because my mind's already moving forward to Chelsea, and it'd be very interesting to see if he does make it into the team for that.
Yeah,
day.
and some of that's going to depend on what center backs are available, right? I mean, I still think the best group we put out there was Holding on the left, Koscielny in the middle, Gabriel on the right, and then Nacho as the left wing back. And I think, look, if you're going to persist with Alexis as sort of the left forward behind Welbeck, he needs to have a better overlapping partner at left wing back, right?
Well, plus if you add in Mustafi, who'll make a very nice centre back in the three, it's going to be even harder for Wenger to find a spot for. That's a great
point. Yeah, because he's
that's going to
tailor-made.
tend to push. Yeah, that's going to push Monreal up pitch, I think.
Well, let's get to Mustafi, Paul. Because first of all, I said we were unchanged. We're obviously unchanged except for Koscielny forced out by injury and Mustafi coming in. Defensively,
but apart from all of the changes we made, everything else was the same.
Yeah, exactly. We were unchanged if you don't look at the changes that we made.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
very clear.
Look, given some of the logic that's being thrown around in the world, and in particular America right now, like I'd say that's still pretty much upper echelon.
Yeah, let's let it go.
Yeah. Anyway, so look, with respect to Mustafi, I guess my question to you is, obviously, this wouldn't be his role if Koscielny was fit, but what did you make of his performance coming back after being gone a while and seeing how the back three had worked without him? How do you think he integrated?
I think he did really well. I mean, obviously he had some eye-catching tackles, one or two that were almost caught an eye.
Did he go to ground too much though? Like he was flying into challenges in this game.
Yeah, the one he got I think he probably got a yellow for it, but certainly no, I don't think he did. He got a foul for it, where he went sliding in and got the ball cleanly, and but it was, in this day and age, it looks reckless, so it is reckless.
Not in control, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you can't question the boys' commitment or that of anybody else's on the day. I mean, they're, that. How do you wind it back at the appropriate moment? I mean, it was a point at which you're trying to get a hold of the game, so fuck it. So yeah, he was a bit careering into a few tackles, but overall his covering was really good. You say Koscielny has a lock on that center back position, and I think you're right. I mean, in all practical terms, but actually Mustafi is probably the natural distributor out of the whole bunch, and but I still think you're going to play Koscielny in the center, just because that's kind of the de facto leader spot. Mustafi has played to the right anyway and distributes well from there, so no issues there. And Holdings looked very good on the left when we used him there. So you're going to have three very good distributors at the back. Monreal and Bellerin ahead of them, both really good passers, linkers, distributors. Now you got a really nice a defensive semicircle, giving support to Xhaka there, who's really good with his line-breaking passes and can knock it back and forward comfortably to any one of those five guys. So now he's got some real support, freeing up Ramsey just a little bit more, not just defensively, but distribution-wise, to get the ball up the field. So begins to look like a very natural setup. And Arsene got interviewed again before this one, talking about how this formation suits some and kind of jokingly, maybe not one or two others. But to me, for a little while now, I keep thinking this really suits our centre backs more than anything. I mean, if there's 4 or 5 really good players we have who can really provide a base at some position in our team, it's our centre backs and our defensive line generally, all of whom seem to suit this lineup.
Well, they have a lot of mobility, and I think they aren't always the best positionally, and so having some support is helpful. And their mobility is well suited to this formation. I think, unfortunately, we've had to chop and change, right? I mean, Gabriel's been in there, Koscielny's been in there, Mustafi's been in there, Holding's been in there, Nacho's been in there, and we see. I think
and playing a line with three centre backs
is
not the same as playing it with two.
Yes, exactly. I think we've seen them struggle to hold the line at times, and some of that is learning to do it with three, and some of that is just doing it with different partners every game. It can't be that easy.
The guy in the centre has to. He only ever had to look to his other centre back. Now he's got to see both sides, or they have to. They have to pivot around
animal. What he's doing, right? I mean, that really has to be the way that dynamic works. And when he's flying around, going into 2-footed challenges, how do you know where to stand? Clive, one guy that I think has been unfairly criticized this season. He had one rough patch, but honestly has stabilized a position that for so many years was a dumpster fire for us, and that's Petr Cech. He comes to the rescue in a couple crisis situations again this game, and I thought he handled set pieces really well, which I think is a strong suit for him. So what do you make of Cech lately, and were we maybe just a little too quick to write him off when he went through a bumpy patch there?
Yes.
Yeah, it probably was, me included. I got a bit frustrated with him.
Paul, so now that your name is Clive, are you changing your Twitter handle, or no? Just going to stick with
back and I'm beautiful.
Okay, awesome. Clive, sorry, go ahead.
I am the poet, philosopher.
Enough out of you. Don't make me mute your microphone, which I do not have the ability to do. Clive, go ahead.
No, I think, he stepped up. And I was one that sort of gets a bit frustrated with him, and I want him to be something else. But, since we have gone to a back three, he has sort of produced some good performances, and he looks good. He looks confident. He looks quite fresh. But I got to say, there's a bit of me that's sort of I'm really pleased with this formation, because what it's allowed us to do is, when we're playing rubbish, we don't concede, and it's giving our strikers time to score, right? And so the whole team is much more focused defensively, but we're still conceding too many chances. Not massively against Southampton, because they're not in great shape, but I still feel we're conceding too many chances. So, but when we do, the goalkeeper's making the saves, right? And even in defeat at Tottenham, he was excellent. So, I was one that I want to see a little bit more of an aggressive goalkeeper, but maybe with the three centre-backs a bit closer to him, he doesn't have to be that aggressive in his starting position. I do think with what's missing in that group of agile, quick defenders is a communicator. And that's why we are getting caught at the offside, because we need someone to lead that defence with their voice, tell people where to stand, tell people when to press. And maybe it could be Cech to get involved in that when he can and be more of a voice. We got good players back there, but I still feel they're working alone as individuals. But what we're doing is we're covering more spaces of grass, and we can't get picked off so easily like we did at Palace and things like that. So I'm happier with the unit, those three and the goalkeeper. I'm happier that we are getting through rough patches in games without conceding, which means we are getting the first goal more often. And we get the first goal, we generally win. And Petr Cech is part of that. But I'm looking for improvement within the structure, and I'm thinking Koscielny, absolutely, football-wise, reading-wise, he's the man. He reads it, he's quick, he's aggressive, and he does all the right things, distributes nice and calmly. But I want someone to open their mouth. So it'd be interesting when Mustafi gets there. Yeah. Will he be the one to do that? He could be the one. So
he's pointy, shouty, communicating.
Yeah, he's a bit of a Flamley in that situation, right? So he is. So you know what, Koscielny may end up being one of the two aggressors, and someone like Mustafi, who's going to be a voice, could be the way in the centre. But it's great to see that, let's see it settle down. It's only a small sample size, but I do think communication between that back three and the goalkeeper is one to look at as an improvement.
I think when you add on the fact that Mustafi is the most natural distributor, if he really does have a good brain to go with the pointy, shouty, communicatey, distributy stuff, it might be another season or two till he's that kind of established. But
and also he's not the biggest, right? So the other two are the ones that are going to take the first ball, and he could be the one to cover around. We know he's a front foot defender, likes to go and smash people, But he tends to know when to step out. And if you look at David Luiz, he's got that skill as well. He hangs back, but every now and again he gets very aggressive and he drives straight through midfield with the ball. He drives straight through to get a tackle, and the other two defenders drop in and cover around him. So Mustafi could be the secret one to be the central player. The more I think about it, the more he potentially could suit some of his attributes.
Fair enough. I think the way we play, it wouldn't hurt to have a more mobile sweeper keeper type guy between the sticks, because obviously we see a lot of opportunities where teams can get in behind us, and Cech is not going to come off his line, not at this age anyway. But then you look at it and you look at the Premier League and you say, at the end of the day, you probably need a guy who's big and strong and commanding and commands his box well and set pieces, because that's a big part of the domestic competition, and Cech does that. I mean, I feel fairly confident in him on set pieces, and that is a pretty refreshing feeling considering some of the stuff we watched down the years. Let's talk midfield, Paul. And as great as Ramsey was against United, it wasn't really working for him. And I want to bring up something that you mentioned and that the manager alluded to. You said you think Ramsey is a player who can really only shine at his brightest when he's at his fittest. And the manager seemed to echo that with some comments he made about Ramsey just coming back to fitness and being able to use his engine to do the things he needs to do. Is it possible that then playing a second game in 3 days kind of prevented him from doing that, because on this day he struggled to get involved and the runs weren't really happening for him?
So I didn't have I was kind of on the road, and I pretty much caught the game. Caught the second half when I got home after listening to it on Arsenal radio. If you want to be truly terrified of Arsenal playing a game, listen to Arsenal radio. Those cowards had me absolutely shitting myself listening to it. So anyway, I watched
True story.
the second half.
There was a Champions League qualifier second leg. I don't remember who it was against. It wasn't the Udinese one. What came after that? Was it Besiktas? Did we play Besiktas in a CL qualifier? Does that sound right? I think so.
Yeah, definitely Turkey.
And and there was a second leg, and any away goal would have put us out. And they had some former Premier League player, not Drogba. Was it Drogba? So who did they have? They had some big, strong guy who had tormented us in the Premier League, and he headed the ball just wide at like 90 minutes. And I was listening to this.
Demba Ba.
That's who it was. Demba Ba. Yeah. And he heads just wide. Not Drogba, obviously, but Demba Ba. And he heads just wide. And I'm listening to it on Arsenal radio. And the call was basically them just screaming, "No, oh God, oh Demba Ba." And for a minute, I thought we were going out of the Champions League. And then they're like, that was so close, he could have won it. I was like, you bastards. Anyway, it's just a little anecdote. Paul, to your point of how terrifying it can be. So, moving on. Yeah.
I just want you to appreciate that I didn't point out your racism once again.
What? What? I gotta be honest with you. I don't even know.
Black and beautiful at the start. I thought that was terrible.
Wait, go back. What was even racist about talking about a Demba Ba header? Because I thought
it was Drogba.
I just knew it was a big, strong guy from the Premier League. The fact that you were imputing a race to that makes you the racist. I was thinking big, strong guy.
Anyway, where were we?
Yeah, I mean, not on racism again, that's for sure. Can you please go on?
What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So Ramsey. I thought he was better than you pitched him at, but I'm not sure about that at all, because I don't have a really good handle on the first half. But to the point of whether he, a lot of people might listen to the comment about him not being 100% and not being as good as he would be if he was 100% and say, well, that's everybody, isn't it? But some people fall off the chart. And he goes off it like a cliff. I mean, I just think he's bang average when he's at 80 to 90%. It's not till he's 100% till he can really, because he's not that fast. But if he has his engine, if he has full fitness, and he can get all over the place in time, otherwise he's always a yard short after a long run somewhere to no avail, and then he's to dart back the other way. And the manager's comment was when he's 100%. He can use his engine and his tactical nous to get to where he needs to be and make it have an impact. So I thought he was pretty good against Southampton. I didn't think it wasn't as good as his Manchester game. I think you probably have a point that a second game so quick probably did bite into his reserves a little bit, but it'll make him for the next few games. I mean, he needs those games. He needs those minutes. He is a player who can play back-to-back games midweek and weekends. So for the whatever 3 we have to go, he should be pretty much full charge, and we survived it. So
yeah,
you know,
he got on the end of that one Ox move. I think it was Ox, right? Not Bellerin.
Yeah.
Where he had the sort of volley that went just past the far post, and he had another one in that similar position that he put wide. So, I mean, he got on the end of a few things.
And look how deep he got for the assist for Giroud, which nailed the game for us. I mean, he didn't just about get to that header. He was
there already.
Yeah, he was there already. He was waiting.
Well, that's because it took Giroud about a half hour to get to that position. So everybody else was there waiting for him. Well, look. But
this is...
Go ahead, Clive.
No. If you're going to stay on Ramsey, I've got to say something, right? Because that situation on that assist, if you look at Ramsey's game, when he's fit, what he tries to do is 2 jobs. So he's, we pick him as one of 2 midfielders, and he is the second midfielder. And for me, his natural position is being the third midfielder in the 3, where he's got much more license. So what he's doing with his back 3 behind him, he's saying, you know what, I'm going, I'm going to push, I'm going to break. Then all the YouTube videos come out with him doing great work, and all that great work is in the top third. Right? All that great work is in the top third. Or you see him running back from behind the play to make a late tackle into the box. And he's another one that puts far too much stress on his body. There's far too much sprints, gives far too much work for him to do. And he's another one that breaks down. I wish he would dominate a smaller area, decide, well, this is my area in centre midfield. I'm going to not just run straight up and down, but I'm going to run laterally as well and really dominate this area and really make people chase me in the midfield. And then I'm going to join much later. He joins too early, and this is why he stopped scoring, because he's already in the box. He's a standing target, and he can be bullied and pushed as he's standing still. When he arrives late, he can score. Right? So he scored 2 goals this year. One was against Lincoln when he's on the line, and one, which was, I think, a really good goal, was at Preston when he arrived and took an edge of area shot. And that's a skill which he really has got. He has got a great shot on both feet from the edge of the area. He should be focusing on that type of goal rather than going past our centre forward on the penalty spot into areas where his body shape does not suit him to be. He is not a great finisher in the box. He scored his last league goal was against Tottenham, which was last March, 14 months ago. And I think there comes a point everyone says he's running well. He's running well.
But that was a hell of a finish.
Oh, it's fantastic, wasn't it? Fantastic. We all remember it, right? So, and he's a sort of guy could score in the cup final, So he has that ability. He is brave. He does not care what people think about him. He's got an ego, and he gets into areas and he does things. He takes risks. He's a risky player. When he received the first second that game last night, the very first second, the ball got played to him on the halfway line. He tried a no-look Cruyff turn, span away, lost the ball. They went down the left-hand side and they crossed it, and we had Mustafi to make a clearance. His whole nature, his default, is to take risks. And personally, with my coach's head on being overly pragmatic, which I just can't help, I want those risks to be taken higher up the pitch, not in the centre of the pitch when we could be exposed. So it's not hurting us against Middlesbrough and Southampton and the teams who are playing at the moment, although Southampton was a great result. But I'm looking ahead to the teams that we have to beat. And there's 2 teams in London, Chelsea and Tottenham, that would love to see those risks taken in the middle third. They can spring on us and score. So that's my judgment. That's my benchmark. But you can't deny he's moving better. He's moving better. He's looking better. But he's another one. Actually, I would think about resting him at Stoke so he doesn't break down, because he's another one that does not do multiple games on the trot. He looks like he does, then bang, the hamstring goes, and we lose him for 3-4 weeks. So I'd actually take him out the weekend and do something else to make sure that he can be there for the games that really matter, like the cup final.
I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like if Liverpool played West Ham before we played Stoke and beat West Ham, I'd say they're probably going to beat Borough at home, so there's not much to play for. I don't think we have the luxury of resting anybody because we have to keep that pressure on them.
You're probably right.
And if you asked Arsene Wenger right now,
Stoke will be our toughest game, I think.
Oh yeah, and if you asked Arsene Wenger right now, which would you rather have, top 4 of the FA Cup? He'd take top 4. You know that. He wouldn't say it openly.
Absolutely.
But, To Ramsey's defense, to some extent, not that we're being critical of him, he did make some great runs on the counterattack where Alexis held the ball just a beat too long and had it taken off of him, where it looked like he was getting ready to give the ball to Ramsey on the run. And those two seem to struggle to get on the same wavelength. Alexis is pretty demonstrable with his frustration with Ramsey and vice versa, which I think drives some people nuts. But at the end of the day, two very talented players, and you'd like to think that over time playing together, which they may not have, that they would get on the same wavelength. And one person that is on what the wavelength we want them on, whatever wavelength that is Granit Xhaka. This is a second consecutive fantastic performance from him. Paul, how much of the improvement in Xhaka's performances do you attribute to the formation, and how much do you attribute to him finally finding a partner where they've got the division of labor down right? Ramsey, a little more license to run, Xhaka, a little more license to sit and survey what's ahead of him and distribute.
Yeah, yes to both of those. I mean, obviously the formation serves him because we don't have another midfielder who can cover him. We debate how mobile he is. Nobody thinks he's super mobile. The question is he okay, or is he a liability? He seems to be moving better in this system, but maybe that's just this system. And maybe it's just, again, the more they know who's doing what, the more mobile he starts to look. He's getting around the place. He's getting back. He's getting forward. Ramsey, it suits him for getting forward. We talked about that. I like the fact that he gets in behind. I diverge a little bit from Clive there. I think we have so few players who get in behind them. And just like every now and then you need to mix in some crosses, in my view, you need some people to get behind him to make cutbacks, etc. So if it's not going to be somebody else, and very often we don't even have Welbeck up there, you need your Ramseys pushing forward. So you got, conversely, you need that coverage for Xhaka so that they can make their adjustments to the game. Ramsey is probably always going to be a player who's struggling to get to that 100% mark for the reasons we've talked about. So just in practical terms, this formation suits it. Mm-hmm. But from, just looking at selfishly from Xhaka's point of view, I think it gives him a lot of passers around him beyond his midfield partner. And if we don't have the ideal partner, though it seems to be working well with Ramsey at the moment, it gives him other options to get the ball out. And it also, as we talked about on the last pod, it encourages Alexis and Ozil sometimes to a fault to drop back in and play ping pong and alternate who's going to play the key pass up or the diagonal, etc. So to me, it's a really good mix, specifically from Xhaka's point of view. And again, small sample size, and against the strongest opponent, we looked neutered. That was against Spurs. But in a way, I'd make the case that Spurs is probably the best reading, but also a bit of a false reading. Not every game is like a derby at White Hart Lane, and for the second or third time you use the system. So I'd agree
that, Paul. I definitely think Spurs was harsh because they scored two quick goals. We never saw it at 1-0 long enough to really know what we'd have done. Yeah. I think it hurt after two quick goals.
Yeah, so not that we were hard done by or robbed, but I think to say, oh, well, that's the measure of us in a top game. And again, talking about tiny sample size, we don't really know, do we? I mean, it's such a divergence between the Tottenham game, the City game, which had its own kind of funkiness against a good team that played a really open game against us. So were our City really the toughest opponent to play that system against at the moment? So it probably won't be until Chelsea in the FA Cup final. And again, talking about small sample size, did you really get in the measure of us going up against a strong team while we've had the chance to at least, we still won't be masters of that formation by then, but we'll at least have had 6, 7, 8 games under our belt playing the system. even though the players rotate. So, yeah, Xhaka looks really good.
Yeah.
This really suits him. And he's got it gives him so many players around him as options that he can ping pong it off. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just tremendous to see him starting to grow into this role, getting regular time in a formation that seems to suit him and with a partner that seems to suit him. And, obviously there's still work to be done in his game, but, at least now you can see the quality and the caliber of the player that we bought.
And in every game now, he has a number of just exquisite passes where you say, oh, that's a Xhaka pass, where nobody else in the game is really
what, Paul,
playing those
even basics.
It's amazing that the commentators have yet to catch on to him.
No, I mean, even when he just swings the ball to the flank, that sort of, the way he puts that curl on his passes out to the flank, to the left wing back or whichever forward is taking up the wide position.
And the other one with the outside of his foot.
Yeah. I mean,
is a gem. He bends it both ways.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun seeing the technique he uses with his passing, and we haven't seen a lot of that since Santi went down, and it's good. It's good to have him doing that.
And he's totally under the radar. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's a lot of times that we overrate our players, but I think this is a case where he's been underrated because of his reputation for red cards, which,
I'm costing 30. Why do they keep going on about 34K every fucking?
Well, not 34K. If it was 34K, it'd be still a century. But
34 M. But
look, by the way,
every fucking player is 34 million.
Yeah, I mean.
By the way, I got to mention it because Tim's wrote a good blog tonight on Xhaka. So
that's
you should have a look at that, mate. It's really, really, really good. So if I didn't mention that, Tim would kill us.
We probably covered all the points you mentioned anyway. Clive.
Last week.
Not the best game for Danny. Struggled to get involved. He did have one sensational flick for Ozil, and Ozil was a little ponderous on the ball, didn't get it out from his feet, and there was a tremendous saving tackle late included in that. But other than that, he struggled a little bit. And so I think when it comes to the fact that Alexis scores a magician's goal from a central position, linking up with Ozil, it's everything we haven't seen since he's moved out of that center forward position, right? I mean, it's Ozil playing to Alexis, which is what we want to see, him getting on the end of moves and then using his extravagant brilliance in the box to create space and finish. As tremendous as the goal was, did it just rekindle for you that sincere desire to see him given another chance at center forward?
When he's there, it looks so natural, doesn't it? It looks so natural. The way he takes the ball on. He's got two players in front of him, and everything in your body says, shoot first time. He decides to just calm himself down, dummy two defenders, onto his weaker side, which he doesn't normally do. He goes, loves to go shape left, then go to the right. But he shaped right, went to left and slide it. It just looks like the first goals in games are massive, as we all know. And it just looks very, very natural. But what Welbeck does do is he stretches teams and he keeps teams honest. And that's a massive plus for the team. It's quite interesting now that teams are not pushing up on us. So that gives so much more space for Xhaka to play in, because they're looking at Xhaka and saying, okay, you've got two half forwards, two number 10s, just showing options. You've got two wing backs flying left and right, and you've got a centre forward just taking me back towards my own goal. I won't press you because I don't know what they're going to do next. Right? So, and Xhaka's now looking good. He's always had that pass, always had it. But what's happening now is he's getting more time on the ball. And although Welbeck, if you look at what we, in our own minds, imagine a centre forward to do, which is look like Alexis Sanchez did in the box, from a running perspective and a stretching perspective and keeping teams honest and not letting them press up on us, he's really important, and that creates the space for our, really, we've got two number 10s and an 8.5 running in behind, moving, mobile. And Danny Welbeck's not getting the plaudits, but without him running, those players would get pressed back very, very quickly. So, not spectacular, but it's a sign he's getting fitter, because he does not two quick games in a row. That's the first time he's done it for a long time. So, although it wasn't spectacular, it's a step forward for him.
Paul, thoughts?
Was it this game or the last game where he did that spin in midfield where he got fouled by the defender? I think it was the last game, wasn't it?
Beats me. I don't watch the games.
and I just it was just another one of those electric Welbeck moments where he was about to just run away from everybody, and he's glorious when he hits that gallop, and he doesn't even look like he's full sprint. He's got
an explosion with his first step that I think surprises players.
Yeah, but he has his mid gear allows him, because he's so controlled and kind of so low key in terms of what it takes for him to sprint. His control with the ball. I mean, once he gets the ball, he's still pulling away from people. I agree with Clive. I think he pushes. He creates space for us around the pitch. He's a constant threat. Wenger, although it wasn't initially his idea to buy the guy, I say somewhat facetiously, he's really taken to him, and you can see that before Welbeck came back and at this point, and he feels bad for Giroud, and he big ups Giroud and Giroud's goal, but he knows what Welbeck gives him in the team, even when Welbeck isn't playing particularly well. I'm not saying he's playing badly, but I agree he didn't have a particularly eye-catching game, but the Welbeck thing works for us.
Yeah,
which is the acid test.
Yeah, look, I like Welbeck, and if we're going to play a center forward that's not named Alexis Sanchez, I want it to be Danny Welbeck. I just think, look, Sanchez is on 25 goals and 15 assists in all comps this season. Okay, he's our first 20-goal scorer in the league since Van Persie. The guy is exceptional. And the criticism of him, for whatever reason that it even exists, is nitpicking compared to what he can do and what he does. And the things that he does that hurt us are somewhat mitigated or diminished when he plays center forward. So, like, it just seems like we're trying to find all these other ways to get other guys into those positions. And at the end of the day, Alexis is the guy who should be there, especially for a team that overall it isn't the kind that wants to play to get into wide positions, put crosses in, and head the ball home. And I realize we did that the weekend, and to some extent we did that in this game. But you get my point. It just so happens not to jive with what actually happens in reality.
But it seems to work. I mean, to your point, he's played up front a bit. He's played left a lot, and he's 25 goals in the season and assists all over the place. So
I get it. But when you look at that hot run,
basically 2 goals in this game from him.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see is a little bit more rotation, like maybe Welbeck starts
within the game or between games?
Within the game, sorry, okay. Within the game.
I see that.
There's no reason why for 15 minutes they can't just switch.
Well, right? He scored from a central position in this game.
He did, and if you look at some of the stats, they did put a lot of Welbeck on the left, and so there's no reason why we can't switch. Once a game is stretched, then switch for a bit. Work them a different way. I think we got those 3 players up front are quite flexible. They've got the movement. Any of them can play in any position. Let's move them around a bit more. Let's not stick to one thing or another, because I think it causes problems. Just keep causing them problems by constant switching within the game. I think that would be the best way to get the best out of both of them.
Well, and the other thing is Mesut Ozil, right? I mean, you want to get the best out of Mesut Ozil, and this is a guy who looks for Sanchez. He just constantly looks for Sanchez. When Sanchez was center forward, he looked for him. Ozil's passing combinations in this game, 14 to Xhaka, 13 to Sanchez. I mean, he's always looking for Sanchez. And the next closest, by the way, 5 to Ramsey. So, he makes that effort to find him. And your 2 most talented players connecting is your best path to scoring goals in football. And so to me, when he's at center forward and Ozil's behind and Ozil can try to play him in, and then sometimes he drops deeper and Ozil makes the run. But I think we've seen too much Alexis as facilitator on the wing and not enough Ozil looking for Alexis in those hurtful areas. And I just think that has to be tactic 1. Everything else has to be 1A, 1B, or 2, because Ozil to Alexis is your best route to a goal. And that's, I think that's where we should be setting up our team. Real quick, before we come to some end-of-game discussion here, Clive, so Olivier Giroud comes on and gets a goal. And kudos to him. And obviously he's not my cup of tea. He's been phenomenal when he's come on as a sub and he gets the goal. If you look at the move where he gets the goal, we have a great counterattack opportunity, and he can't get into the space he needs to because he's too slow and the opportunity dies. And then we, through tenacity, win the ball back and get the ball across to Ramsey, and Ramsey heads it over to Giroud, who heads down. lovely. No argument there. And the player clearly is good in those positions. He's clearly not good on the counterattack. Like, he's just not fast enough to run into those spaces. And to me, you're 1-0 up, and you're starting to see Southampton come on you, and you're starting to see these counter opportunities develop. And we've been kind of poor in the counterattack through execution, but clearly there was space to run into. And Giroud felt like the wrong choice to me. Now, I get that it worked out, that he got the goal. But my question is a little different. Do you feel that Arsene Wenger's substitutes, by and large, are pre-planned? That he has the guys he likes, that he rates, and those guys get on first, regardless of the situation? I mean, can you make an argument that 1-0 up against a team away against a team that's going to have to start attacking you, Giroud is the right sub, or is it simply that Giroud's going to be my first attacker off the bench?
Yeah, I think he plans it, right? So when you go and watch Arsenal, you can see it on TV, right? So the 3 subs that are coming on, they're the first ones up to warm up. You can tell. They're the ones that have been designated. Okay, we had an injury in this game, but Bellerin would have probably come on in this game as well. So he definitely pre-plans it, regardless of the game. And I think, in your mind tells you, bring on speed in case a team's attacking you, bring on maybe a Theo Walcott, or maybe bring on a Iwobi or something like that. But I just think he's going to go with Giroud. He's a senior forward. He's next off the rank. And no matter what the game's doing, he's coming on late. Simple as that. And he's obviously statistics when he does come on late are really, really good. And I think the game slows down for him a little bit more. And late in games, what you find when as a midfielder and defender, when you start to tire, sometimes adding a big man to hit, it simplifies the game. It takes complexity out. Your technique goes when you tire last 20. So have that structured player coming on.
Concentration too, right? The ability to stay switched on to the guy who's in the box.
So you're tired. Last 20 minutes, games are decided. Put Giroud on. I can find him. He can hold it, and we can build from that area of the pitch. So I do get it. Liverpool do it sometimes with Origi. They bring him on late. They don't start with him. They bring him on late because they can hit him late in games. When they can't press anymore, when they get the ball, they can hit him. He runs the sides. He's a different animal. He's a bit more like Welbeck. But it's a similar thought process. I really like Giroud late in games. I wish Theo Walcott. Maybe the question is around Theo Walcott. Like, what's happening there? Because he's just not been trusted.
Basically, since he made the comments that they wanted it more against, was it Chelsea? Who was that? No, it was the Palace game. It was the Palace game.
Palace, you're right. Sorry.
They wanted it more. He basically hasn't played since then. He had a couple minutes. So I wonder if he's in the penalty box a little bit. Look, let's move on from it. My only point, Clive, it was not meant to say that Giroud's not a talented player and he has nothing to offer. It's that there are situations where I feel there are players we have better suited to the situation, but the substitutes are going to be who they are. And that's just how it is. It's it's the whole, we'll bring Coughlin on to defend a lead kind of thing. Well, sometimes to defend a lead, you actually want more control, not someone that's going to cause you to have to sit back more and have less control, right? So it's frustrating to me sometimes that those substitutes don't always seem suited to the game state against the particular opponent, but more based on here's my first sub, here's my second, here's my third.
You're absolutely right. I totally agree with you. And there's many times when Coughlin has come on, I'm thinking, okay, we need the ball. Why don't you bring El Neni on? He brings on Coughlin. We lose no control. We don't gain much. I don't think Coughlin's a great substitute. He's someone that needs to start. And I think you make a great point. I think he's very much pre-planned. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Paul, if it's all right with you, I want to move on to something that we have to discuss before we sign off, which is just Arsene Wenger's, frankly, astounding. You can't really be astounded by anything he says, but certainly newsworthy comments regarding a director of football prior to the match. He was asked if he would work with the director of football. He said, as long as I'm here, I'll be in charge of the stuff that goes on at the club. And then basically said, what does a director of football do? Direct like traffic, you go left, you go right, like sort of a dismissive, condescending comment about the role of a director of football. And while I can certainly understand why he may bristle at the thought of one being put in, it's certainly a window into how he sees himself at the club, how he sees the consolidation of power at the club and his role there, and maybe lifts the lid a little on conflict behind the scenes that may be going on and pressure that may be getting put on him. How did you take the comments?
Yeah. So I think there were two potential contributors to his irritation. First, just the bringing up of it is kind of a little bit of a slap in the face in terms of the broader conversation that, a director of football is being brought in, yes, to help with the potential transition that he hasn't even said will happen, but also to balance out maybe his shortcomings. So you could imagine him bristling from that standpoint, and you could also imagine him bristling because if there's any merit to it, and there very probably is, there's probably a difference of view inside the club. I can't imagine that Ivan Gazidis wants Arsenal to keep running the way it does going forward, entirely dependent on Arsene Wenger. When he's seen the instability over the last year or so, and where the rest of the board has seen, we came from basically 20 years of stability to a very turbulent year in which it looked very clear how things would play out at the start of this season and even in the middle of the season. But this last third of the season, anything could fucking happen on the field, within the club, in terms of the manager's position going forward. It really is all up for grabs. And I'm sure Ivan has a vision for the future and has been laying it out and been baking this for a few years. And he probably didn't really think it was going to kick in for a few more years, but now's the time. And I would think Arsene's kind of, he's got a lot going on the field under a tremendous amount of pressure. And yet he's fighting this rear guard action. Not that I think Ivan's trying to do him in or that Arsene thinks he's trying to do him in, but you're negotiating the boundaries of power going forward, and it's kind of an indictment of your recent record, depending on what you mix into the pot. You could just portray it as, hey, the club's decided to step up its infrastructure in terms of a transition, but these are very emotional things. So, yeah, I think it's where I might have poo-pooed it, as they say, 2 or 3 months ago. I think everything you can read into it right now probably has some significant merit to it.
Fair enough. Yeah, Clive, I want to turn it over to you for the final word on that. But before you do, let me just sort of put this in context in terms of why I think this is an interesting debate. Because the funny thing is, I believe we need a director of football. I believe we need to modernize the structure at Arsenal. I think it needs to be a little more stratified. And I think we need to change the manager, and that the manager should be more of a first-team coach who obviously has input on what he needs to build out his team, but the director of football sets the club in a direction and runs that side of the business. Having said that, if you're going to keep Arsene Wenger, you don't put in a director of football. It doesn't make any sense. The thing that makes Arsene special, if you believe he's special at all, and look, if you hate Arsene at this point, you can't stand him, and you call him a French see you next Tuesday, and then that's you, and that's just how you're going to see it, and that's fine. But I think what makes Arsene special is he's one of the last few remaining old-style managers who has the ability to handle everything, to build a squad through the transfer market, through player development at the youth level, and then coach that team to be competitive. Now, look, he's no longer able to do it at the absolute top level, but he's proven he's still able to do it to get into the CL knockout rounds and stay in or around the top 4 and get to an FA Cup final. So he's not like a complete abysmal failure. If you stay with Arsene Wenger, you stay with him because of his ability to be the jack of all trades. Certainly his weakness is as a first-team coach. He is not an exceptional top-level tactician. He is no longer at the top of the game. And I'm not suggesting he's at the top of the game as a director of football, but if you say he's kind of a 7 out of 10 DOF and a 6 out of 10 coach, he's both of those things combined, and that's kind of rare to find. So, Clive, I guess my point is, as weird as it sounds, and as much as I think we need all of those things, there is no good argument for putting a director of football in above Arsene, because doesn't that just basically invalidate the thing that makes him special?
It could do. It could be the perfect chess move, right? So you bring it into a corporate environment. You're literally bringing somebody else in for him to report to or work with. So you're literally, it's almost bordering on constructive dismissal. right? So you're changing his reporting lines. You're potentially lowering his importance, and that's why he's bristling. So when he says that he loves the club, and which I'm sure he does, if you're the Ivan Gazidis, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create layers within the club. You can't be running a club as big as Arsenal, the 6th or 7th richest club in the world, and have a single point of failure in your club. You just can't do it. You can't sustain that year on year. You have to create layers. You have to create a structure by which if one piece moves out, the whole thing doesn't fall down. Because right now, if Arsene Wenger decided, I don't feel very well, my health is failing, and just decides to go, we are not ready for it. We are not prepared. We are not prepared for that move. And that's not smart custodianship. That's not smart ownership. That is not a smart way to run things. So I'm of the opinion that whether it's director of football or whatever you call it, we need more people at that level, more quality people. We need 2 or 3 more. People criticise Arsene Wenger, but you can't criticise his quality. My issue has always been, wish we had 3 of them. 3 people of that quality in the club, so we can divide the roles like we see in Xhaka and Ramsey right now. Divide the roles appropriately and make ourselves much stronger, and that's what we need to do. And Gazidis is trying to do it, and Wenger's bristling against it. It seems right. So, you know what? I hope Gazidis pushes it through. I hope he does it, because the future of the club will be better the more quality people we have at that top level. Because right now it seems very, very one-man dependent, and that's just not healthy in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not a healthy structure. It's just that, to me, if you're giving Arsene 2 more years, I mean, you might as well give him 2 years to do what he does best, which is run the whole show. Because
can I just add quickly?
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is the plan now is clearly different to where everybody in the club saw it at the start of the year. To use Tim's analogy, they're trying to fix the airplane in flight. It's in a pressure cooker. They could probably come up with a reasonable plan and handle it in the media much better if this were being handled, last summer or this summer, to come up with a plan to roll on. But the plan, Ivan is moving the goalposts probably for very good reasons. And Arsene's got a fucking tiger by the tail and a fucking crocodile biting his ass. And he's like, he doesn't need this shit. And he's got the media asking him. So I don't deny any of the, if you like, the rumors side of it. I just think it is a tough environment for folks within the club to become aligned and be on the same page. You're going to see some sparks fly. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess my point is this. If you said Arsene Wenger is staying, but he can only have one job at Arsenal, DOF or first-team coach, you'd be crazy to pick first-team coach, right? Like, clearly that's where our upgrade is needed more, right? It's not. I'm not saying he's assembled the greatest squad in the history of humanity, but he's put some good squads together. I mean, the one he's got right now is a good squad. He's just not able to coach it up.
I take your point, but if you reframed it slightly and said, Arsene Wenger is going to stick around for 2 years. He wants to be first team coach. Can we bring in a director of football to work with him over these next 2 years to slowly take up the reins so that as it slides down in terms of responsibilities, this guy comes in and kind of take it forward from there. And in the process, we begin to think, who would the manager, you can handle it a different way. You don't have to bring it in as a power struggle. You don't have to do it as a complete division of labor day one. There's no way you just, I'll maybe rephrase your point in some ways. You can't come in and take half of Arsene's job off him day one. You just can't.
Of course not. No.
But we you know what, Paul, we don't know what he does. Right, we think he does everything, but we don't know who does. We think maybe Dick Law does all the contracts.
Well, we know he doesn't do it great, considering he basically got fired, so Josh Kroenke could handle the Ozil.
Yeah, exactly. So we're surmising that, and this is the impression that we get. But I look around at the club, right? You look around different measures, right? So you look around at our competitors. We've got a similar wage bill to Chelsea. Right, I don't know how many points we are behind. We've got a wage bill which is 90 million higher than Spurs. Right, and they're like 14 points on ahead of us. And our efficiency of spend is not great. Our squad is very, very heavy. We do not sell well. We buy assets and they reduce when they come to us in the main. And so that side of the job is not going well. We're quite consistent.
Jesus, this is descending quick.
Well, we need to wake up and have a look from at the outside, and we had this impression that he'd be a great director of football. I want to know why. He wouldn't be, because he doesn't.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Clive. I also really agree with your point that we don't really know what he does. But I know this much: the thing he most wants to do is the coaching part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. He likes to smell the green grass when he's mentioned that, and I've read those comments, and fair play to him. And you know what? I like Halle Berry, but I'm not going to get her. Right? Do you see what I mean? So he needs to recognise at some point that this is he should be looking for a more senior role. You're absolutely right, Elliot. He should be looking for that job, but he wants to hold on to the coaching side. And I'm looking at thinking, hold on a minute here. We're not spending our money wisely. We're paying people far too much that are not worthy of their pay packet. And we're not matching people on performance who've got less revenue than us. So that side of the game is not going well. And on the pitch, we are not improving with the resources that we have. So we've got some work to do to be far more efficient in how we spend and how we perform. And I want to ask myself, do we think this is the guy to do it? Does he need help? He absolutely does need help. He needs more quality people around him. If he doesn't accept it, well, the checkmate move's coming up. And Gazidis is trying to play it. Will he be allowed to play it by Kroenke? Not too sure. But I applaud him for trying to do something with the structure of the club to make sure we are not so dependent on one man.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, a lot of this it could go a long way to being decided this weekend. If if Liverpool beat West Ham, unlikely they'll lose at home to Borough on the final day. If we lose to Stoke, again, top four gone, and top four being gone may be a impetus for change. Having said that, there's still the FA Cup final, and winning that may be enough to keep things as they are. We'll find out. It'll be a very important weekend because somehow there's still life left in the patient, as Bill, our top four correspondent, told us at the start of the pod. In any event, Paul is on Twitter at @PositiveMyPants. Thanks, Pos.
Pleasure.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Please do so. Leave us a 5-star review and write nasty things in the comments section. You can lay off Clive. He's had enough. Write him about Tim. He's not here, so we can beat him up. In any event, be sure to read Tim's blog because Clive thinks it's so good. And we'll be back after we go to visit the Orcs. Up the Arsenal, everyone.